لي شي 100 سنة مجنوح بهالدكان، طجرت مني الحيطان ومست حية قوم، وانا عيني عالحلا والحلا عالقرآن، غنيلو غنيات وهو بحاله مشغول، نطرت بوعيد الأرض وما حدا نطرني. ناس ويا حملوا شمسية وما حدا نطرني. صار لي شي 100 سنة عم ألف عناوين مش معروفة لمين، ووديلن أخبار بكرة لابد السما لتشتلي عالباب، شمسيات وأحباب ياخدوني بشي نهار، واللي ذكر كل الناس بالآخر ذكرني. قديش كان في ناس عالمفرق تنطر ناس وتشتت الدنيا ويا حملوا شمسية، وانا بايام الصحو ما حدا نطرني، ما حدا نطرني.
Good evening, Masā al-Khair, Ivar Bash. Welcome to the Concert for Hope. Thank you for joining us. أهلا وسهلا بكم إلى حفلة الأمل. شكرا جزيلا لانضمامكم لنا. I am Ahmed Al-Rashid. I'm delighted to be hosting this event with my colleague Noor Saqar. We are both here in England and we send greetings to you all over the world tonight.
مساء الخير. I am Noor Saqar. It is exciting to be here. My friend Ahmed and I are from Syria originally and each settled in England now. صديقي أحمد وأنا أصلنا من سوريا وهلأ اثنيناتنا مستقرين ببريطانيا. We're both trustees of UK Welcomes Refugees. Later we will hear from our director, Bekele Wojtje.
Yes, it's going to be an amazing event tonight with some of the most talented performers from Syria. Like us, they have experienced the conflict which started 10 years ago this month. All of us are grateful to have found welcome here in the UK. Tonight, we are celebrating the musical traditions of our own culture. Syria is one of the most amazing places on earth. Our first instrument is the sound of home for Syrians. We are very proud to introduce the great Maya Youssef. بشرفنا كتير إنه نقدم لكم العظيمة Maya Youssef. Maya grew up in Damascus, and as a young girl, she fell in love with the sound of Al-Qanun.
Yes, but someone told her girls don't play the qanun. Well, they do now. Maya is known as the Queen of Qanun. Maya هلأ معروفة كملكة القانون. She wrote the piece she's performing tonight during lockdown. It's called Walk With Me أو امشي معي.
the great Maya Youssef. Next, we are very fortunate to welcome Syria's leading young pianist, Riyad Nicolas. Riyad was born in my hometown of Aleppo, Halab, which is one of the oldest inhabited places on earth. He first performed in Aleppo with an orchestra when he was just 10 years old. Now he is known across the world and he has won many international prizes. Tonight, we are proud to hear him performing an Arabic piece from the Syrian folklore album by Syrian composer Dia Al-Saghouri. The title is Rain O World, Shati Ya Dunya.
Shukran, Riyad. We will hear more from Riyad later. How refreshing that was. Yes, we do have rain in Syria. Actually, this year the rain was so heavy that many of the refugee camps are flooded. I can't help my people back home, but since community sponsorship was introduced here back in 2016 by David Cameron's government, I have been able to help other families start new lives and to show that Britain is a country of welcome. We are thrilled now to welcome the Director of UK Welcomes Refugees, Bikaely Wojcik. أنا هلأ بتشرف إني رحب بمدير جمعية بريطانيا للترحيب باللاجئين، Bikaely Wojcik.
Good evening. I'm delighted to be part of this great event entitled Concept for Hope, which is organized by UK Welcomes Refugees, of which I am the director. My name is Bikaely Wojcik. I am originally from Ethiopia, a former refugee and a proud British citizen. In fact, I consider myself to be a global citizen. As UK Welcomes Refugees, we want to see a more welcoming world for all. We work to grow a powerful community sponsorship movement where we thrive together, where we grow together, where we succeed together. We work with resettled families and community sponsors to grow and sustain the community sponsorship movement by leading transformative campaigns. We work to ensure both community sponsors and sponsor families have a strong voice in building a UK that's more welcoming to refugees. I want to say that UK Welcomes Refugees is a membership organization, and our members set our agenda. For those who may not know about community sponsorship of refugees, let me say a few words. The community sponsorship scheme was launched in 2016 in the United Kingdom. It brought opportunities for civil society to step in and do what it's best at, welcoming those who need our protection. I believe it's a very good scheme both for refugees and those who welcome them. It brings voices of both sponsors and sponsored families. It empowers civil society. And more than anything else, you don't need to be an expert to do community sponsorship. It's only your good heart and your passion that's needed. Anything else is doable. I'm really keen to see this wonderful scheme flourish in the United Kingdom so that more refugees are welcomed and resettled in the United Kingdom, while at the same time, more and more people are involved in this wonderful, exciting scheme. I hope you enjoyed this event and think about what you can do to welcome those who need our support and stranded in camps around the world. Thank you.
Shukran, Vikele. It makes all the difference to belong to a community here. There are so many things to get used to in a new country. Ahmad, what do you miss most about Syria? شو أكتر شيء بتشتاق له بسوريا أحمد؟
Great question, Suhail Azim. You know, I really miss family. For me, family is really important. And we used to live in one home, you know, in one house. And today we are scattered all over the world. أكتر شيء بحن له أكتر شيء بشتاق له هو العائلة. قبل الحرب كنا ببيت واحد، حاليا هلا نحن منتشرين حول العالم. How about you? شو بخصوصك؟
The same family. نفس الشيء كمان بشتاق لعائلتي أكتر شيء. The next piece will bring back some of our best memories. We are overjoyed to welcome renowned viola player Ragad Haddad, who will introduce قديش كان في ناس.
I would like to play a song called قديش كان في ناس. This song is for the Lebanese singer Fayrouz. Fayrouz is very popular in Lebanon, Syria, and the whole Arab world. Actually, in Syria, people like to, especially to listen to her songs in the morning with a cup of coffee. Fayrouz songs has very, very nice memories for me as a Syrian, and I think for many Syrians too. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
There is a saying in Syria, without Fairuz there is no morning. بدون فيروز ما في صبح. هالمقولة كتير مشهورة بسوريا. Ragad will play later and we can't wait to hear her improvised prayer for Syria. Some of the best musicians in the world are performing here tonight, all from Syria. We'll also hear from one of the greatest politicians of his generation, Lord Alf Dubs.
Yes, Lord Dubs was a child refugee from Prague. Lord Dubs هو نفسه كان طفل لاجئ من Prague. He arrived here on the Kinter transport before Second World War. He belongs to the House of Lords. He works tirelessly for refugees, and his parliamentary amendment allowed separated refugee children to reunite with family here in the UK.
All our guests tonight are so inspiring. Next, we are going to hear from violinist Mariella Shaker. Mariella was honored at the White House by President Obama and named a champion of change. She and her husband, pianist Riyad Nicholas, recorded a piece for us from their own home. Before she plays her violin for us, let's listen to Mariella Shaker's story in her own words.
It gives me a great pleasure to speak and perform at Concert for Hope. Thank you so much, UK Welcome Refugees, for your great efforts in organizing this event and for allowing me the opportunity to share my story and music with you. I was one of those young people in Syria whose dreams were vanished by the ongoing war. In 2011, the war escalated in Syria, and my city Aleppo started to mourn its people day after day. We frequently woke up to the massive sounds of explosions. Without electricity or power, I decided to hide in internet cafes to send my applications to schools and universities in the US and Europe. I was struggling in the darkness of a ruined city, running under bombs falling everywhere, to find any opportunity of survival. After 6 months of tireless work, a miraculous email landed in my inbox from Monmouth College in Illinois. They offered me a full tuition scholarship to continue my music studies in the US in 2013. Aleppo was besieged by the time I received my visa to travel. All the roads from and to Aleppo were closed except for a very dangerous gravel-side road. My mother and I went to that area where private buses gather to pick up passengers, but it would be at our own risk as these buses are not affiliated with any company. I had to say yes because my flight ticket had already been booked and I did not know if I would ever get a second chance. The trip on that bus took us 17 hours, while normal days it did not exceed 5 or 6. Over than 50 checkpoints of soldiers along the way. At many of them, they thought the violin case was a gun, and I had to prove it was not. So they would make me to open the violin case, pick up the violin and inspect it. The bus driver got lost in an area where I could not see anything apart from destroyed building. A couple of days after I arrived to the US, I found out that 3 buses had been completely bombed while trying to take the same route I took, and people I know, including my doctor from Aleppo, were killed. It turned out that the road had become target for snipers. My violin and I made it safely to the US though. Unable to return back home, I was granted asylum and citizenship in the US. Although I found love and support in America, it's still painful to realize that your home is not home anymore. That some of your friends died while trying to fight for life, and some others are refugees at various countries. No parents would risk the lives of their own children to death in order to cross the Mediterranean, unless the water is safer than their own land. No one would wish to leave everything behind and be a refugee in a foreign country and start all over from scratch. One of the worst things that could happen to any one of us is to end up as stranger, vulnerable, or number. To be a refugee is to master being resilient, rebellious, courageous, fearless, and always willing to compromise. One of the many great things about refugees is that they're so determined and driven to be successful, to be part of their new communities. That's why we really need to include, not to exclude. Refugees work day and night to not just survive, but thrive to be the change at their new haven. More than 13 million Syrians are displaced now, but we are not that number. Each one of us carries a story, memories, relatives, and parents. Music plays a great role in humanizing numbers. For me, it's a way to sing my home and take you on a journey to see my city and admire its beauty. When you lose your home, music is sometimes all what is left to tell the story of that suffering country and its people. Music has the power to break boundaries between people and nations and harmonize our differences. I know it's not going to feed a child or put a roof above a refugee's head, but it can inspire people and change makers to do something, to not just sit around waiting. I hope the sound of music will one day be much louder than any weapon, and the power of music will help healing the pain our world has felt and create peace platform for everyone. Thank you.
Well, I was 6 years old when the Nazis invaded Czechoslovakia in March 1939. The first dramatic change was we had to tear a picture of the Czech president, Beneš, out of our school books and stick in a picture of Hitler. German soldiers everywhere. And anyway, some bit later, my mother put me on a kinder transport train. I remember still in my mind's eye seeing anxious parents on the platform, German soldiers with swastikas in the background. And of course, the parents did not know whether they'd ever see their children again. It was a long train journey on hard wooden seats, but when you're 6 years old, that doesn't bother you very much. As a 6-year-old, I didn't know anybody on the train. There were perhaps 100, 150 children on the train. It took a long time. We crossed Germany. When we got to the Dutch border, the older ones cheered because that was a sign we were out of reach of the Germans, the Nazis. I didn't understand the significance of it. I knew something important was happening, but I didn't really understand it. It was dark, but I was looking for windmills and wooden shoes, which is what I knew about Holland. I didn't see that. We got to the Hook of Holland, onto the boat, then to Harwich, we were checked medically, and then the train to Liverpool Street. And that was the journey. So, you know, compared to many refugees today, it was an easy journey. Clearly, if I hadn't been on that train, I don't think I'd have survived the Holocaust, but it was an easy journey in terms of what other people have gone through. So bewildering for me, but I didn't understand. It was just there I was at Liverpool Street with my dog tag, and we're all checked off. So that's the story of the journey. Now, I was luckier than some because my father had escaped earlier, and so he was there to meet me. I think quite a few of the children did not have a family member to meet them, or the family members escaped later. So it was a very confusing time indeed. At any rate, I spoke Czech and German, so I had to learn English. I suppose in a school playground, school playgrounds are tough places, so you learn quite quickly. And when you're 6 or 7 years old, that's fairly straightforward. If you're older, it's harder. So I didn't have too much difficulty with the language and with school after the initial bit. And then I, as I got to my teens, I began to puzzle as to why what had happened to me had happened. There was a war, clearly, there was bombing, rationing, and so on. And I began to puzzle as to why what had happened to me. So I decided that if evil men in politics can do this, then maybe politics can also be used to reverse the process for the better. So I was passionately interested in politics at a time when none of my school friends would give it a thought, except the war itself. And so I was passionate in politics. And then I decided, as I went to university, London School of Economics. I was very lucky in that sense. And I then decided my ambition would be to be a local councillor. As my political ambition, I decided as a refugee, I really didn't stand a chance of doing much more. At the same time, a friend of mine said, "Oh no, you'd be ambitious, could go for Parliament." So in 1970, I was the Labour candidate for the cities of London and Westminster, and my Conservative opponent, who won, safe Conservative seat, Conservative opponent who won was Christopher Tugendhat. So we had the spectacle of a refugee from Vienna competing with a refugee from Prague for the central constituency in Britain. And it's interesting, the media never picked that one up. So anyway, eventually I was a local councillor for some years. I then managed to get elected for Battersea to Parliament by a very small majority. And I was put on the committee dealing with the future British nationality, public bill committee. And there I was, 18 MPs, and of those, I was a naturalized Brit, and I was helping to influence the future of British citizenship. So I thought that was quite interesting, something that, you know, maybe not every country would give one that opportunity. Then I lost my seat in the election. I was head of the Refugee Council for some years, and then I was put in the Lords. And that's where my campaign for child refugees really began, because the Syrian conflict had started. People were fleeing from the war in Syria and from other conflicts, Afghanistan and so on, but from Syria in particular. What happened was that we learned that there were 95,000 unaccompanied child refugees somewhere in Europe, mainly, as far as we're concerned, on the Greek islands or in northern France, or in Italy. And so I moved an amendment which eventually was accepted by the government after a lot of argument. And the thing that tipped the balance was that public opinion suddenly woke up to this. They saw the tragic picture of people drowning in the Mediterranean, the tragic picture of Alan Kurdi, little Syrian boy drowned on a Mediterranean beach. And I think the public responded to this and felt, yes, we can do something on behalf of child refugees. And so all over the country, groups were set up to support refugees, particularly child refugees. And eventually the government felt that the second time round, and the vote went back to Commons, they were going to lose. And so they conceded and said, yes, we'll accept your amendment. Well, they then limited the numbers, but it began to work. We got some over here. It began to work. And above all, there was also the possibility of family reunion for children who had relatives in another EU country. And we managed to get some to Britain on the basis of joining their families over here, traveling from Greece, Greek islands, or from northern France. That was quite positive. But we're now left in a position where the family reunion arrangements don't apply anymore. And we're waiting for more news from the government. The Home Secretary said that the refugees would now be put on an island somewhere while their position was processed. Well, it must never happen. It certainly must never happen for children. But this is today's news, and I find that pretty shocking. But we have to see what the details are. That's a very shocking story. So the campaign goes on, and we rely very much on public support in Britain. And I do everything I can to get public support, speaking at meetings and so on, because that is the best way of bringing pressure to bear on the government. And also, I went to a camp in Jordan called Zaatari. Now, that was physically much better. Prefab buildings with water, sanitation, electricity. But I was talking to a young Syrian boy, about 16, and he'd finished school in the camp. And I said, what now? And he said, well, I've tried to get a job in the camp and I can't. I've tried to get a job outside the camp and I can't. I don't believe it is safe for me to go back to Syria, which was only about 40 or 50 miles away, back to Syria. So what do I do? And that set me thinking that the most important thing that human beings need is hope. And where people can put up with very bad physical conditions if there is some hope. But where there is no hope, there is nothing for people at all. And I think our job in this country, and in other countries, of course, is to give people hope. If there is hope that they've got a life ahead of them, education, love, family, if possible, and it is hope. And that is my bottom line on all this, that we as a country have to give people hope. And the children that are stuck in Europe, we want to give at least some of them hope that they can get here for a decent life. We can't take every refugee, but we can take some of them, and we can do a lot better than we've done up to now.
This is an improvisation, a prayer for peace, for humanity, for poverty, for every country, and especially for my homeland and my loved ones.
Hearing those testimonies and Ragad's prayer for Syria brings back memories for me, and I am sure it does for many people listening. Ahmad, you are right about how inspiring our guests are tonight. But your story is inspiring and you are inspiring. The film of your journey here is famous now. Exodus, it got a BAFTA. And now you work to help others. وهلأ أنت كمان عم تشتغل لتساعد اللاجئين. How do you think we can best support our homeland and people who've lost everything in the war?
Thank you, Noor. Great question. Well, tonight is one way. To understand Syria isn't to watch it on the news. It's about people and traditions and history. The war has caused so much suffering, but our culture goes back thousands of years. Every village, every family shares that culture. Wherever we are in the world, we know how to celebrate. وين ما كنا بالعالم نحن بنعرف كيف نحتفل. At weddings and gatherings in Syria, you will hear the music and get to dance. The dabka, the sound of home. Well, the oud is an ancestor of the lute. Before the war, there were over 20 oud workshops in Syria, and now just a few left.
Yes, our next performer, Rihab Azar, plays the oud. Rihab Azar رح تعزف لنا على العود. She grew up and studied in Homs, and taught at the Conservatoire of Damascus before the war. She was the first female oudist to perform with the Syrian National Orchestra of Arabic Music. We are delighted to introduce Rihab Azar. Here she is at the Wigmore Hall playing one of her own compositions, Love Far Away. رح تعزف لنا واحدة من مؤلفاتها الحب البعيد.
Beautiful sound. Talking of that close community we all miss and how important it is, I want to introduce a friend of mine who plays the duff, drum, and the tambour. This video is from Scotland. It includes memories of the dabke dance at weddings. So let me introduce Adnan Shamdeen. بتشرف كتير إني أقدم لكم عدنان شمدين.
Oh, that dancing. You know, a young friend of mine is next. She arrived here from Syria just over a year ago. The talented singer شهد العسل. الفقرة الجاي لصديقة إلي من سوريا وصلت على بريطانيا من 2 سنين. بحب أقدم لكم المبدعة شهد العسل.
Wonderful. And after Shahad, we visit another family home with Usama Kiwan and his son, Hatem Kiwan. The song is Ya Hubbi. Then we meet our friend Nick Coke, community sponsor. وبعدها رح نتعرف على Nick Coke اللي هو كفيل اجتماعي.
ويمر بي طيفها وتسكن الأحلام جميلة أحبها واسمها شام ويمر بي طيفها وتسكن الأحلام جميلة أحبها واسمها شام شو مرقع راسك شو تغيروا ناسك ليش هيك فيكي صار اجتمع الوجع والنار صاروا إلك زنار يا أرض السلام يا أرض السلام معلش إلك الله والملايكة حراسك شو مرق عراسك شو تغيروا ناسك بتضلي وفيكي منضل عشق وغرام الكل منك ما رح منفل بحبك خلص الكلام يا أرض السلام معلش إلك الله والملايكة حراسك.
Good evening. My name is Major Nick Coke, and I'm a Salvation Army church leader based in a place called Rains Park, which is in southwest London. And I'm keen to just share a little of my story with you about how a family of 5 Syrians changed our lives. So it starts back in 2015, and my wife and children, myself, would sit and would watch the evening news, and it was often with horror that we would watch the news, because every day and with every news report, we became more aware of the suffering of the Syrian people due to the civil war. And we became convinced over time that we couldn't just watch this and not do anything. We had to do something. But what could we do? Around that time, we heard of a new programme being considered by the UK Home Office, a programme called Community Sponsorship that would allow an ordinary group of people in a community like ours to come together to sponsor a Syrian family that had to flee the conflict and to help them to resettle into our neighbourhood. And as soon as we heard about this, we knew this was exactly what we needed to do. It took probably about 10 seconds to decide we'd give it a go. So fast forward 18 months, and my wife and I are standing at the arrivals gate at Gatwick Airport with 2 other people from our community sponsorship group and an Iraqi interpreter. We're waiting for a family of 5 Syrians to come through. I'll be honest, we're feeling a bit nervous because we know their names and their ages, but we don't know a lot else. We are testing out a few very basic words in Arabic with the interpreter, and we're trying to look as welcoming as possible. You see, we want this family to understand that they are so welcome to be here in the UK, and there is a whole load of people in the community that they're moving to that are just desperate to meet them. But we realize that it must feel incredibly overwhelming for them on that day, and it's going to take some time to get to know one another and to build trust and to feel at home. But I will remember that day for the rest of my life. The moment when we met each other for the first time and we greeted one another with salam. We had been preparing so hard for their arrival that it didn't really feel like a first meeting of strangers. It felt honestly like a welcoming of family. This was about 4 years ago. So how has it been since then? Has this experience lived up to those early days, people often ask me? Well, to that, I can only say yes, and more actually. There were times in the early days when the family needed to depend on us a lot for support. We helped them out with some practical things like registering for the doctors and helping the children into school and showing them the cheapest place to buy food. But as time passed, the relationship began to change. Very quickly, it dawned on me that this wasn't a one-way relationship where we did all the giving and the family did all the receiving, but rather it was often us who were actually on the end of the real welcome. You see, every time I popped round to the house just to check in and see how they were getting on, I was so often on the receiving end of that famous Syrian hospitality. I began to gain in weight when I was gaining in friendship. When people would ask me how it was going, I'd say, now I understand what genuine welcome looks like. If I'm honest, when we started out, I thought it would be us that would be doing all the welcoming. But as it turned out, we were receiving far more than we gave. So today, I can honestly say we are more than friends. We are family. We share our lives with one another, both the good things and the challenging things. We celebrate together different milestones, moving up levels in English speaking, achievements by the children at school, new work opportunities. But we also grieve what has been lost, family members left behind, the distance from what was home. We also grieve for all those Syrians stuck in limbo who would love to be resettled into the UK but don't yet have a community sponsor. We would love to help everybody, but we can't. But we do know that we did do something. We sponsored one family, a family that have become part of our family. And honestly, it's the best thing we've ever done. Thank you for listening.
يا حب اللي غاب من عمري أنا حياتي عذاب حرمت الهنا 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 يا حب اللي غاب من عمري أنا حياتي عذاب حرمت الهنا 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 من بعدك لمين 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 الزهر بينحني وبتشرق لمين 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 شمسك يا دني من أو بتشرق لمي لمي لمين شمسك يا دني يا حبي يا غالي يا ساكن ببالي سواد الليالي حياتي أنا يا حب يا غالي يا ساكن في بالي سواد الليالي حياتي أنا حياتي أنا
That story and those songs are so moving. One of the reasons I want to help build further community sponsorship is because it works. Nick Coke tells such a powerful story of how people grew closer by welcoming strangers. Hospitality is part of our culture. Noor, this experience of community sponsorship, how has it changed you?
Well, Ahmad, I first came here as a student before the war. Then I felt so sad and so frustrated being here when people back home were suffering. أنا أول ما أجيت لهون قبل الحرب كنت طالبة وحسيت باليأس والحزن إنه العالم والقرايبيني بالوطن عم بيعانوا. I couldn't do anything. That first time I went to the airport to welcome a family here, it changed my life. بتذكر أول مرة طلعت على المطار لرحب بأول عائلة لاجئين. بتذكر كيف التجربة غيرت حياتي. I saw people who looked so relieved to meet someone who spoke their language. We'd found a home for them and got it ready, and we had people to welcome them and help them with school and language.
Language, yes, language is so important. It really helps confidence, you know. I am an English specialist and I have set up English lessons online to help fellow refugees and other people who want to learn. You have had a huge impact as a sponsor. How many families now?
Thank you. Yes, well, I worked with, I'd say, 28 families now since 2016. And some families are now waiting for good news from the government, hopefully. And hopefully I will work with more families. Just to say that all of the families, all of the children know my name and it's absolutely amazing. فأنا هلأ اشتغلت مع 28 عائلة من سنة 2016 وكل العائلات وكل الأولاد بيعرفوا اسمي وهذا شعور رائع.
Incredible. Now our next performance is an Arabic piece from Raghat Haddad, لما بدأ يتثنى.
I would like to perform a Syrian song called لما بدأ يتثنى. It's based on a classical Arabic form and on an ancient poem. Many singers sang this song, including the famous Lebanese artist Fayrouz. I will do some improvisations, then the song. I hope you like it. Thank you.
That sound of home is haunting. Ahmed, what are your favorite memories of Syria? شو هن الذكريات المفضلة عندك من سوريا؟
Oh, great question. So many, actually. Let me think. Coming from Aleppo, one of the things that I miss dearly is the food. Aleppo is known of being the city of food. So the food of Syria, the food of Aleppo, the smell of the food, it's something I miss so much. And I hope that one day I can enjoy that lovely smell and taste again. Like, for example, I miss the fool mdammas, the fava beans. I miss the shawarma from the streets of Aleppo. How about you, Noor? Tell me, what do you miss the most?
Well, I have to say food as well. But, I think what I miss most is family gatherings. I miss weekends in Syria. When I was a child and I got so excited when we went to see my grandparents or my uncles and aunties and all of my cousins. I come from a very big family. I have 43 cousins. تعرف أنا جاي من عائلة كتير كبيرة، عندي 43 ولاد عم وعمي وخال وخالة.
Incredible, Azim. You've touched on family, Noor. And yes, we love to bring all generations together, especially at the festivals. The Kiwan family recorded this next piece here in their living room last Christmas. We heard Osama and Hatem already, but they're all musical. Elaine, Haneen too.
Here's a song that takes me back to childhood. I grew up in this tiny little fishing town, Banyas. الغنية الجاي بترجعني لذكريات الماضي وللمدينة الصغيرة اللي ربيت فيها بانياس. Every Friday, my dad would take us to the port. The fishermen would be coming back from fishing. We would follow them to the fish market, and they'd sing at the market as we chose our fish to take it home to cook. I remember them singing this next song, يا بحرية. بتذكر ريحة السمك بالماركت لما كنا نروح نختار السمك اللي بدنا ناخده على البيت ونطبخه. وبتذكر الصيادين يغنوا على هاي الغنية يا بحرية.
We're drawing to a close after an amazing evening. Thank you to everyone who has made this concert so special and shared their stories. A huge thank you to our inspiring Syrian musicians. شكر خاص للموسيقيين السوريين. Show them your support by following them and helping to promote their work.
Are you inspired to get involved in community sponsorship or to set up a group in your local area? You can visit Reset UK for more information. فيكن تزوروا موقع Reset UK لتاخذوا معلومات أكثر.
Are you a former refugee and resettled in the UK under community sponsorship? We'd love to hear from you. هل أنت لاجئ سابق؟ نحن بدنا نسمع منك. Get in touch with Claire Roberts. She is an Arabic speaker.
Thank you everyone here in the UK and across the world for being such a great audience tonight. It's been a privilege to be your host. كان إلي شرف كبير إني أكون مضيفة الحفلة لكم اليوم.
It really has. كان شرف عظيم. Here is a familiar song now to play us out. Keep watching for information. The concert may be over, but the music continues and work has begun. Thank you all and good night. شكرا جزيلا وليلة سعيدة.
شكرا كتير، تصبحوا على خير.
Thank you.